Member for Peace River North.
Thanks, Honourable Speaker. Following on the inspiring speech from my colleague before me, I will try and, well, no, it's going to be very difficult to be as inspiring because this throne speech actually was not very inspiring. But, Honourable Speaker, I do want to start, on behalf of my constituents of Peace River North. I'm truly honoured to be giving some feedback on this year's throne speech. I'll be giving feedback based on a lot of what was said, but more so how it connects to my region, to my colleagues' region, or actually how little this connects to our region. I'm certainly proud, like all of us are in this place, to represent our ridings. My riding, I've mentioned, is quite large, from Taylor to Hudson's Hope, Fort St. John, Fort Nelson, the many little hamlets that are spread throughout, my Indigenous communities that are really spread across almost 170,000 square kilometers that make up a large chunk of northeastern British Columbia. With that, obviously, I do require on some incredible staff, and I do want to thank my constituency staff, Kim Iglinski, Tamara Wilkinson, and Natasha Scott, my legislative staff here, Wendy, David, and Ryan, that always, all of them work together as a great team to make sure that they're supporting me in the work that I need to do to make sure that I am representing my constituents. Finally, I'd certainly want to recognize and thank my family, of course, where I draw most of my inspiration for being here, because I am doing this, because I want an incredible province for my children to grow up in. And I do this for my son Noel and my daughter Hannah, who have sacrificed so much to have me here and away from them, to which I think everybody in this chamber can attest to and experiences in some way or another. Honourable Speaker, as I mentioned a moment ago, I can really only use one word, and that's dismay, when I listened to the throne speech a couple of days ago. In fact, I'll mention Vaughn Palmer's headline, "Long on promises, short on details." And that really sums it up. In fact, I will use a couple other quotes. Rob Shaw also. The Premier hit snooze on his uneventful throne speech. And that is really, I believe, what British Columbians saw. The vast majority of what British Columbians saw that was displayed in this throne speech. Displayed in this throne speech, how out of touch this government is with the pain, the challenges, I think, that British Columbians, the vast majority of British Columbians, are feeling and seeing right now. The throne speech from this government did not provide hope, provided very little vision, at a time when people are looking for hope, when people are looking for that vision, especially now on the coattails of the incredible challenges that everyone has faced these past couple of years. But what British Columbians have been given is nothing really more than a laundry list of what happened yesterday, spewing out of promises that were made in 2017, made in the 2020 election, some of them just reused over and over again. Well, maybe not all. I didn't hear anything on the elimination of portables. I know that was one there. I guess they've given up on that one. Renter's rebate. I don't recall seeing anything on the renter's rebate. I guess they've given up on that one. But these are campaign promises that have been made by this government for almost the last 6 years that I think British Columbians have given up on. They don't see any action from this government. They don't see any action in this throne speech that was presented. We have seen very little action over the last number of years. And I think this is what is driving a lot of the worry. When I talk to people in my constituency office or when I travel to different parts of the province, people are really concerned that this government is not looking out for them. Or as the title of the throne speech is, "We have your back," British Columbians do not feel that the government has their back. I've said this in the past. This is a rudderless government lost in the ocean right now. A government that seems to have no real idea of the direction that we're going, and sadly dragging British Columbians along with us, along with you. And, you know, again, I love using quotes. Rob Shaw, as well mentioned, at 26 pages and 5,000 words, it said very little of substance on what his new government intends to do over the next few months. British Columbians are listening. British Columbians are worried. All of us in this house, down on the floor, many people watching, recognize that the throne speech is a cornerstone of this place, of all governments across this country. It's a chance to put down in black and white the direction that you plan to be going, lay that vision out and provide hope for British Columbians. Maps out what the government intends to do. But there was nothing really of that in this throne speech. What was really concerning was there's no real vision for stimulating the economy, which is something really important in my area, the northeast part of British Columbians, which is really a powerhouse, a breadbasket of the province, incredible natural resources that include forestry, there's mining, natural gas, oil, vast amounts of agriculture. Very lucky. And British Columbians are very lucky to have an abundance of resources across the province. But there's no vision. And the throne speech was quite clear because it did not even mention anything about how are we going to grow British Columbia's economy, which is truly based on our natural resource sector. A sentence on forestry. Actually, I think there might have been 2 short sentences on forestry. Yeah, maybe not. A sentence on mining. Yeah, mining's good. Brazed over a couple little comments on agriculture.
Yeah.
No mention of British Columbia's oil and gas sector, especially natural gas. Honourable Speaker, that is concerning. We all understand how important the resource sector is to the province of British Columbia. We all want to have incredible schools. We all want to have a great healthcare system. We all want our roads maintained. We all need these things. This is what British Columbians expect. But if we don't have an economy to support that, which this throne speech certainly doesn't promote, we are going to be in a great pile of trouble. As I mentioned, very little comments, very little discussion about the North. I think it was mentioned three or four times in the throne speech. There was talk about the mainland, but again, very little comfort for my constituents in Peace River North. LNG, as we talked about, we have right now one of the biggest projects being built in Canada, one of the largest projects in Canada being built up in Kitimat with LNG Canada. An incredible project that will divert an incredible amount of CO2 from the atmosphere by supplying a much cleaner fuel to countries such as India, China, and other growing countries around the world, Europe, that are struggling to get their energy. These are great opportunities for British Columbia that we are not even seeing this government talk about. Opportunities to use a resource that has been for the last, decades, but certainly in the last decade, it has got incredibly through innovation, how the extraction of our resources are done, have become incredibly environmentally friendly when you compare to other countries that are still going to be there providing, regardless, energy around the world. So this is something, again, that really worries me, and we've, right now we're looking at the Cedar LNG, which is kind of in this awkward holding stage. Tilbury. These are projects that we need to be seeing move forward. These are projects that the province needs to see move forward. Again, if we're going to continue to maintain a fantastic education program that we have, improve our much needed to improve our healthcare system that we have. Of course, in my riding of Peace River North, the natural gas sector is the largest sector. It is the largest sector that employs people. It keeps our communities going. They're good paying family jobs. These industries that are part of our communities, some are small, some are big, are really a big piece of the cloth of our communities. They're the ones that are funding all the little extra, the little extra things that our communities rely on. Doesn't matter if it's sports teams, funding many of the social service programs in and around the Peace Country, up into Fort Nelson, providing food through food banks. This is all provided by a lot of these companies that are right now, and have been for the last number of years, feeling threatened by this government that does not talk or does not display any love at all for these important sectors, not just the oil and gas, but others that are that we're seeing the challenges being faced with right now. Actually, it seems like this government's an anti-resource government, period. We've seen the crumbling of the forest sector. And again, the forest sector plays a significant role in my riding. Definitely, I know the member for Peace River South, recently having a mill closure in Chetwynd. I have a mill a pulp mill in Taylor that's been on indefinitely curtailed. These are challenges that are challenging not just my region, but communities across British Columbia. And the impact is felt not only in rural British Columbia, but it is felt in the larger centres throughout the Lower Mainland. On the island, forestry plays a significant role. Yet we're seeing these jobs being lost, families being displaced, with very little sign of a lifeline being thrown to them. Yeah, we'll trade you for the tech sector. Well, if you look at a sector right now that is actually losing people, it is the tech sector right now across the world. So, as you can see, there's not a lot of hope in the 2023 throne speech. Another thing that is really prominent in my community is the farming aspect. Over 90% of all the grain produced in British Columbia comes from the Peace region. I know my colleague from Delta South has been up there a few times and toured. It looks a lot like Alberta up there. The amount of farmland, the vast, hundreds of thousands of acres of canola, wheat, barley. Even our farmers are feeling threatened. Feeling threatened because this is a government that doesn't seem to support many of the aspects that are unique to the farming community in the north. Allowing people to have a second residence is one thing that I've heard over and over again. I know we've addressed that a number of times. And I know the former agriculture minister, I know we've talked about, having title on a second piece of land on a farm is a challenge. These industries, again, as we have talked about, do support our healthcare system and all the other pieces that we all rely on. But the healthcare system is shambling. And I can tell you firsthand, it's probably, well, not it is probably, it is the #1 complaint that I receive in my office in Fort St. John, as well as my office in Fort Nelson. The #1 phone call I receive from constituents is on healthcare, or the lack of. Can't get a specialist. Wait times. We have people driving to Grande Prairie, Alberta, when they're injured, because they can get into emergency quicker than they can in Fort St. John or even in Dawson Creek. They're driving to Grande Prairie, Alberta, across the province, to another province, because it's quicker. So you add a 2-hour drive, your wait, procedure, whatever happens, and home in quicker time than they can get served in their own community. And that's a shame. We've seen diversions, emergency room closures. And what we get year after year, throne speech after throne speech, we're improving it. It's getting better. It's going to get better. Well, Honourable Speaker, it isn't. It hasn't. You can ask British Columbians across the province. Anyone, anywhere, on the street, has healthcare got better for you? And I know that the answer will be a resounding no, it has not. So not a lot of positive outlook for the healthcare. You know, it was interesting. I'm just going to interject a little piece here. I forgot. I was going to talk about this earlier. Just a couple days ago, the BC labour market outlook came out, which looks at, as it says, you know, the market. What is British Columbia going to look like going forward for the next decade or so? And it was interesting. I pulled out the Northeast, and I just want to read into here. This is what's expected to be the big things that are going to be happening in the Northeast, where labor is going to be needed. Industries that are expected to grow fast are nursing and residential care facilities. Okay, probably won't argue that. Universities. That's interesting. We have a satellite campus of UNBC that has a classroom in it, so I'm not sure how that is one of the fastest growing industries in northeastern BC. Fishing, hunting, and trapping. Well, we've seen the challenges around fishing, hunting, and trapping the last couple of years, so I'm not sure how that industry is going to grow. Online shopping is expected to grow in northeastern British Columbia. Private trades and education, telecommunications, postal services, couriers, and messengers. This is what the BC government says are going to be the growing industries in northeastern BC. It's quite shocking, actually, Mr. Speaker. No mention of forestry. Well, I guess we know it's not going to grow. There's no mention, there's not even an inkling of a hint for it to grow. No growth, I guess the mining industry is not going to be growing up in the Northeast BC. Oil and gas sector is certainly not going to be growing. I guess farming is not going to be growing. You know, again, another great example to show how out of touch this government is by releasing something like this. Stunning. You know, in the throne speech, there was a mention, again, this is the out of touch piece, talking about how, how many people are moving to British Columbia, and because they see the opportunity here, because, you know, and this was in the throne speech, I can't remember what page, I'm not going to read it, but people are moving to British Columbia to seek out better. But interestingly enough, CTV did a story just a week or two back on the record high number of people leaving British Columbia going to Alberta. 20-year high, according to Stats Canada, of people that are departing British Columbia heading for Alberta. And as you can imagine, the number one stated reason is affordability. British Columbia is the least affordable place to be living in Canada. One of the most least affordable places on the continent. Kathy Blanchard, who moved to Spruce Grove from Victoria, I really wanted to retire here in Victoria, but I just couldn't do it. Deborah Call, it sucked. I left all my friends, all my family behind, except for my one son that came with me. She moved to Edmonton. So people are moving out of British Columbia, seeking better. And in this throne speech, the government stated that we've got your back. Well, a number of these people that have left certainly didn't feel that this government had their back. And the one message that Ms. Call said, those who have felt pushed out of BC really hope that policymakers are listening. Well, policymakers, we know, are the ones who wrote this throne speech that did not provide any hope for British Columbians. This government has no idea how to make life more affordable for British Columbians. In fact, it's quite the opposite. In fact, I think we're up to 29 new taxes and fees that this government has put on us, and us, I'm a taxpayer, all of us, have put on in their almost 6 years of being in government. It's an additional over $12 billion of tax revenue that needs to be collected every year. That is a lot of money. And you know what? It wouldn't be bad if we could actually, all of us say, man, we are getting the bang for our buck. Healthcare is great. There's, I can see specialists, I can do this and I can do that, and the roads are good, and schools and all those things. But it's got worse, Mr. Speaker. 29 new taxes, just around $12.5 billion of new taxes received every single year by this government, and things are worse. That's not a very good record. In fact, since 2016, this government has almost doubled British Columbia's debt. Okay, what took from 1871 to 2016 to accumulate a almost $50 billion debt, a $40 billion debt, this government is now approaching doubling that in under 6 years. Good job. And again, I have to go back to, I guess you guys had no other way to do it because they're not supporting the resource sector in this province. So the only way they can get revenue is by dipping in to British Columbians' pockets. We here, and I've heard this from, we have a lot of multinational companies up in the Northeast, and had a number of meetings over the past, since I've been elected, actually. And these companies are leaving because they don't feel there's hope here. They're moving to Alberta. They're moving into the States. Jurisdictions where it's easier to do work. This province, this jurisdiction has become probably the least competitive jurisdiction on the continent. And companies are fleeing. Companies are fleeing, heading to other jurisdictions where they can work. And with them are going good-paying jobs, families, some of that record high number of people that are moving into Alberta. Honourable Speaker, though, as I move to conclude my remarks, it's very clear that this is the same old NDP that's addicted to taxation. No idea. Well, let's talk about that surplus. You know, that surplus has come from a resource sector that this government doesn't really want to support, right? The surplus from overtaxing British Columbians. You know, you had your turn. I heard the members throne speech yesterday, and it was a big nothing sandwich, other than pointing at I don't know. I can't even guess what it was. It was quite the speech, anyways. And it was a speech, Honourable Speaker, that how much hope did it provide? Did it provide hope and a dream forward? No, it did none of that. But he had his chance. So, Honourable Speaker, I am going to conclude my remarks there. I do thank, again, I do want to thank all of the representatives or all of the folks in my riding that have sent me here to represent them. It is my absolute honour to do that, and with that, I'll take my seat. Thank you.
Thank you.